The good news is Peter is a lesson here on how to stay humble. And I got a few moments here, so let me give you 4 points, amen, on how to stay humble, how to keep from getting that big head. Y'all ready for the first one? First one, you can see it here in verse 12. Peter says, why do you stare at us as if by our own power or godliness we have made this man walk? He said, Peter looked at himself and said, you know, son, there's nothing in me that could have done that. And the first point I want you to get here is, don't forget, you are a mess except for the failure of God. Excuse me, except for the grace of God. Let me break it down. Let me say it clear. You are a failure except by the grace of God. Okay, let me say it again. If it hadn't been for God on your side, let me say it a better way. If God hadn't helped you, let me say it a better way. If God hadn't blessed you, if God didn't give you those gifts, it ain't God didn't give you those talents, you wouldn't be anything right now. I know some of you are saying, nah, I did it on my own. No, you didn't. God opened some doors. God made some way. God gave you some talents. God gave you some ability. God made. If it hadn't been for the grace of God, you and I would be major failures. But it was God that elevated us. It was God that lifted us. It was God that raised us. Peter said, there's nothing good in me that could have done this. It was the Lord that did it. It was the grace of God. It was the mercy of God in my life, the favor of God in my life that gave me the ability to do something that I'm doing right now. Number one, if you want to remain humble, you can't forget it was the grace of God that kept you, that blessed you, that raised you, that elevated you. If it wasn't for his grace, you and I would be major failure. We are not self-made. We didn't get here by ourselves. We stand on the shoulders of other folk open doors for us. I was on Twitter the other day, and somebody was talking about, we were talking about some money and different things, and someone was talking about self-made people. They were going on this thing about self-made. I said, there are no self-made billionaires. They said, yes, there are. What about Bill Gates? I said, Bill Gates wasn't self-made. Bill Gates' father was a nationally recognized patent lawyer that taught him to license his thing a certain way, so he licensed Microsoft to IBM, the biggest computer company in the world. If his daddy hadn't have told him what to do, if his daddy hadn't given him instruction on what to do, IBM would have probably paid him a little bit of money and went on about their business. Nobody is self-made. Everybody's got some opportunity. It was something that happened in your life that allowed you to get where you got to be. Look, we got to stop thinking we got here all by ourselves. You got to stop thinking if you're not, somebody helped you, somebody looked out for you, somebody opened a door, something just happened to happen at a certain time, and you just happened to be there at that moment. It was the grace of God. Oh, we got to stop thinking, amen. See, the grace, understanding, let me help you here. Understanding that it was, you got some help somehow, some way. Understanding that will keep you humble. See, when you start thinking you did it yourself, you talk different. And you look at other people different. When you think, you say, well, why can't you do what I did? Without telling the whole story. Amen. You got to tell the whole story how you were blessed. You got to tell the whole story how somebody gave you a scholarship. You got to tell the whole story how a professor looked out for you. You got to tell the whole story how somebody pointed you in the right direction. You got to tell the whole story. You can't just act like you got here all by yourself. It was the grace of God. God put some people in your way that position you to get and be where you are doing what you're able to do. Don't forget the grace of God, amen. That'll help you remain humble, because when you realize that you got some help, you are more willing to help somebody else. You are more willing to be gracious to somebody else. You are more willing to help somebody else get along, understanding you didn't get here by yourself. Peter said there's no power in us, no godliness that blessed this man. It was the Lord. That's the first thing. Don't forget about the grace of God, because the grace of God is what got you. Number two, you want to remain humble. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful about people who celebrate you, because the same people that will celebrate you will crucify you. What are you talking about, Pastor? What are you talking about, Pastor? The text says in verse 11, while the man that was healed, we read that last week, the man that was healed was holding on to Peter and John, and the crowd was running towards Peter and John, all excited and looking at them as if there was something great about them. But they had to let them know, amen, it's not us, it was God. And see, what I'm going to tell you, they had to kind of take the crowd wanted to give them some accolades. The crowd wanted to recognize them. The crowd wanted to lift them up. The crowd wanted to elevate them. But you know, crowds are fickle. Because let me help you. Peter ain't stupid. When Jesus started first healing people, there was a lot of crowds. But the same crowds that followed him through Galilee and followed him all over the place were the same crowds that said crucify him at the end. And if you read on in the book of Acts, the same crowd that's celebrating Peter now is going to, they're going to be okay with Peter being locked up in prison. And so you got to be careful about how folk can gas you up, how folk can make you think you're bigger than you are. Amen. Because there's some folk that can hype you up to the place where you start believing your resume. You start believing you are all that in a bag of chips. You start believing that you don't need anybody else, that you can do it all by yourself. You got to be careful of folk who will gas you up, because the same people that will gas you up are the same people that will tear you down. You got to be careful. And see, you got to remain humble. See, so you can't, people want to acknowledge you, say how good you are, whatever. You got to take that kind of acknowledgement in stride. You can't let that stuff get to your head, because, like I'm saying, the same people, I said at 8 o'clock, some folk that will compliment you will cuss you out. So you got to be careful, amen, about, folks celebrating you. There's nothing wrong with getting some acknowledgement. There's nothing wrong with that, amen, but understand, you receive it humbly.